Welcome to the deep dive. You know how we do things here. We dig into the source material, the articles, the research, all the dense stuff, and we pull out the insights you really need to know.
And today, wow, today we are looking at something that's pulling people under across the entire job market. And it's
Yeah.
not what you think. It's not inflation, not really stagnant wages. It's about the cost of just getting and keeping a job.
Yeah, our sources are calling it the pay-to-work trend, and it's this really disturbing reality that, for years we all thought the biggest barrier to a good career was your skill set or your education.
Right.
Turns out it might just be your bank balance.
It's the systemic toll. I mean, that's what it feels like. And our mission today is to really unpack how it's widening that socioeconomic divide. We're zeroing in on two big things that are linked: the cost of just getting experience, we're talking unpaid internships, and then, this is the wild part, the cost of leaving a job.
This part is it's hard to wrap your head around. It's enforced by something called a Training Repayment Agreement Provision, or TRAP for short.
A very appropriate acronym.
Incredibly appropriate. So let's just paint a picture here, because you need to feel this. Imagine you've just landed a great job. You're so excited. Maybe you're a new nurse or a coder just out of a boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
The company says, we're going to invest in you. They put you through weeks, maybe months of mandatory specialized training, and you sign a contract.
And that contract is the TRAP. It says you have to stay for a set period. Maybe it's 2 years, maybe 3. If you quit before that, you owe them. You have to pay them back for the training.
Okay, so now fast forward a year. The job is, it's toxic. You're completely burnt out. Or hey, maybe you just got a much better offer somewhere else. You go to resign, you're ready to move on.
And that's when it happens.
That is when the hammer drops. Your employer hands you a bill, a demand for repayment that, based on the documents we've seen, can be as high as $75,000.
$75,000.
Yeah.
To quit your own job.
To quit.
Just think about that for a second. This isn't a loan you took out for a car. This is debt you get just for accepting a job that required training. And here's the part that is just. It's grotesque. In some of these cases, that debt was actually more than the total amount the company ever paid the worker.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying someone could work for a year, get their paychecks, and then when they leave, they walk away with a net loss. They owe the company more money than they ever earned.
Precisely. That's the definition of a coercive contract. You literally leave in the red because that training cost was designed to be this huge weight tied to you from day one. It's the ultimate stay or pay deal. It turns what should be an investment in an employee into a weapon.
It's just modern leverage. And this isn't some tiny niche problem. A big 2024 study we looked at found this has exploded over the last decade. It's trapping about 1 in every 12 workers in the U.S.
1 in 12.
1 in 12. The number literally doubled. It went from about 4% in 2014 to almost 9% by 2020. This is an economy-wide problem now. Employer-driven debt.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We've got this horrific endpoint, right? The $75,000 debt trap. But the sources show the paying starts way, way before that. The idea that you have to calculate a financial investment just to apply for a job are job applications basically subscription service now?
It has absolutely become a financial filter. Even the initial job hunt, just getting your name out there, now favors people who have cash on hand. We have to talk about these digital gatekeepers that have sort of replaced the old way of doing things.
Right, because the old model is gone. A hiring manager with a stack of paper resumes on their desk, that's a museum piece.
Totally.
Modern hiring doesn't start with a person. It starts with an algorithm. And apparently that algorithm is learning to smell money.
It really is. To get seen today, applicants are getting pushed, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly, to buy premium services. This is stuff like paying for LinkedIn Premium to see who viewed your profile, or using these AI resume builders that promise to get you past the initial screening.
And then there are the niche job platforms you have to pay for, or career coaches that cost thousands of dollars.
Exactly. And you mentioned those AI builders. What are they actually doing? Is it just fixing typos, or is it a real advantage?
Oh, it's a huge technical advantage. It's way beyond a spell check. These tools scan the job description from the company you're applying to. They find the exact keywords that the applicant tracking system, the ATS software, is looking for.
The dreaded ATS.
The dreaded ATS. And it optimizes your resume so the machine actually lets a human see it.
So if I'm a perfectly qualified person, but I'm just using, a free template in Microsoft Word, I might be the best candidate.
Yeah.
but the machine just throws me out because I didn't pay for the right software to speak its language.
That's the system. And the data shows this isn't just a feeling. Paying for this stuff gets real results. The analysis we saw shows that using these digital tools can boost your application's visibility by an average of 40%.
40%.
40. On big platforms like CareerBuilder and Indeed. So if you can afford the tools, the algorithm likes you more. You get a huge head start before anyone has even read your qualifications.
So you've got this digital toll booth at the start, but then you hit the more traditional barrier, the experiential gatekeepers.
The unpaid internship.
The unpaid internship, where young people are expected to give months of their labor just for the privilege of getting experience. It's like a required pre-application test that only rich kids can afford to take.
It's amazing how much this has become the default. Looking at the data from the UK sources, over half, 51% of recent graduates have done at least one internship. That's up from just a few years ago. It's not a bonus anymore. It's basically a requirement to get in the door.
And companies are all in on this. The number of employers offering internships is up too. It went from 48% in 2018 to 59% today. And if you look at a major city like London, it's something like 80% of employers offer them.
Wow. So the old entry point, like a graduate scheme or a training program, that's being replaced. The expectation now is that you come with experience already.
Right. But here's the real problem. The thing that is just actively driving inequality, the cost of doing it. The sources show that 35% of graduates overall have done an unpaid or underpaid internship.
Let's just think about the reality of that for a second. You're 22, you're trying to start a career in an expensive city. You've got rent, you've got transportation, food. One source estimated that back in late 2020, the bare minimum to survive for a month in London as an intern was over £1,000.
That's over $1,200 a month minimum. And that was years ago. Imagine what it is now with rent prices.
Exactly. Which brings us to this brutal piece of data about who's footing the bill. A shocking 40% of these unpaid interns are relying completely on the bank of mom and dad to pay their living expenses.
40%. And that number is up. It was 26% back in 2018. So the barrier is getting higher faster. If your family can't afford to just hand you thousands and thousands of pounds for months, you're locked out, period.
You're out of the running.
You're out. And the damage this does to social mobility is measurable. The sources show the gap in internships between working class and middle class grads has widened. It went from a 12-point gap in 2018 to a 20 percentage point gap today.
So wait, in just a few years, the system has gotten actively worse, more unfair.
Much worse. It's 36% of working class grads participating versus 55% of their middle class peers. The system is becoming less about merit, not more. It's basically demanding a financial sponsorship before it even considers you for an opportunity.
And it's not just about class, is it? I think I saw something about a gender gap in there, too.
Yeah, there's that as well. 55% of male graduates did an internship compared to 47% of female graduates. The whole trend just undermines any goal of having a diverse, equitable workforce. The price of admission is just too high.
So we've established this is a huge problem. It's corrosive. But how does a company, especially a big global one, even figure out if what they're doing is ethical training or just exploitation? That seems to be the core dilemma.
It is. It's a huge tug of war. Fairness in paying for work versus the supposed value of educational experience.
And that's the whole argument for the unpaid model, right? The idea that it's basically like school. The intern is the one benefiting the most, so they shouldn't be paid. They're learning, not working.
But that argument just falls apart the second that intern starts doing real work. Drafting emails, managing a social media account, running errands that help the company's bottom line.
That's when the law has to step in to separate real training from what's just free labor.
Exactly. The moment the employer gets a real economic benefit from what the intern is doing, the whole legal picture changes. In the U.S., they use this standard from the Fair Labor Standards Act. It's called the Primary Beneficiary Test. It has 7 factors.
Okay, 7 factors. That sounds complicated. Can you break that down? Give me an analogy.
Let's do it. Let's think of it like a 7-layer cake. Each layer is one of the legal factors. If most of the cake's layers lean toward the intern, it's probably a legal unpaid internship.
Yeah.
If they lean toward the employer, you've got a problem. You've got wage theft.
A 7-layer cake. I like it. Okay, what's layer 1, the foundation?
Layer 1 is expectation of compensation. Super simple. Did the employer make it crystal clear there's no pay? If they even hinted at a future job or payment, that layer leans toward the employer.
Got it. Layer 2.
Similarity to training. Is the internship actually like being in a classroom where they're mostly shadowing people sitting in on meetings? That's training. But if they're just filling in for a paid employee who's on vacation, that's staffing. That's for the employer's benefit.
Makes sense. Layer 3.
Connection to formal education. Is this internship tied to a college course? Is the school giving them credit for it? If so, it looks more educational. If they just applied randomly over the summer for no credit, the employer has to be really careful.
Okay, what's 4?
Accommodation of academic schedule. Does the internship work around the intern's classes and exams? Or does the employer treat them like cheap staff who have to hit deadlines no matter what?
That seems like a big one.
It is. And so is layer 5. Duration and benefit. How long is the internship and how much of that time is spent doing productive work versus just learning? A short internship that's mostly shadowing that benefits the intern. A 6-month internship where they're managing a client account by week 2.
That's clearly benefiting the employer.
Clearly. Layer 6, displacement of employees. Is the intern doing work that a paid employee would otherwise be doing? If so, the company is saving money on a salary. That's a direct financial gain for them.
Right. And the final layer, number 7.
Understanding of no guaranteed job. It has to be completely clear that this is not a trial run for a job. If the intern thinks it is, they might put up with being treated poorly. If all they've been promised is experience, then it's on them to decide if it's worth it.
So if a company fails on a few of those layers, they're facing big legal risks, back pay, penalties.
Huge risks. What's so interesting, though, is that it's not just activists pushing for change here. It's the employers themselves.
Really?
Yeah. A survey of HR managers in the UK found that only 20% think the unpaid system should stay as it is. 80% see that it's outdated or unethical.
Wow, that's a huge majority.
It is. And they're not just talking. 38% of the employers surveyed want unpaid internships banned entirely, and 30% want stronger enforcement of the minimum wage laws.
So the common argument you hear, that banning unpaid internships would make all the opportunities disappear, employers are saying that's not true.
They are flat out rejecting it. 3/4 of the companies that currently offer internships said banning the unpaid ones would not cause them to offer fewer spots.
They just pay them.
They just pay them.
Yeah.
It completely debunks that whole argument. It's not about the opportunity disappearing. It's about the opportunity becoming a paid one.
So let's talk about that. The business case for paying. Why is it actually a smart move, not just an ethical one? What's the ROI?
It's all about retention and brand. When you treat an internship like a serious recruitment tool instead of, a source of free coffee runners, the payback is huge.
I guess it's like a long paid job interview, right? You get to see their work ethic, how they fit in the culture.
Exactly. And the data backs it up. Employees who are hired out of a company's own internship program stick around. We're talking retention rates of 73 to 75% after 1 year. For people hired from the outside, it's way lower, closer to 50%.
So you're saving a ton of money on hiring and rehiring.
You are. And long term, it's even better. The 5-year retention rate for former in-house interns can be almost 44%. You're building a pipeline of loyal talent that you already know is good.
And what about the brand damage of not paying?
Our source is called Unpaid Internships, a silent killer of an employer's brand. Big companies have faced huge public backlash for being seen as exploiting young, ambitious people. In a world of Glassdoor and LinkedIn, a bad reputation for being exploitative spreads fast.
So paying your interns isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do for your brand, for your talent pipeline, for your bottom line.
It's increasingly becoming the only strategic choice.
So if the unpaid internship is the toll booth to get into the workforce, these TRAPs, these training repayment agreements, are the giant wall you have to pay to get out.
Exactly. We're going deeper into this idea of pay to work now by looking at this employer-driven debt, the TRA trap.
So stay or pay contracts, we know they affect 1 in 12 U.S. workers, and they seem to be everywhere now. Nursing, trucking, IT, any field where there's some kind of upfront training.
Yeah. And the companies that use them, they claim it's about protecting their investment. They say, look, if we spend $15,000 training a new truck driver and they quit after 6 months to go to a competitor, we need to get that money back.
That's their argument. Otherwise, they won't train anyone, and that hurts workers.
But the critics, and there are many, call them excessive and one-sided. They argue the costs are just wildly inflated. They're charging workers for things like basic orientation or even for the time a manager spent mentoring them, which was already part of that manager's salary.
So how does the debt get so high? You mentioned $75,000. How does that happen?
It's the amortization schedule.
Yeah.
The way the debt gets paid down. A fair contract would have the debt decrease steadily over time. But these TRAPs are often designed so that almost all the debt is still owed in the first year, or even the first 6 months. It makes leaving early financially impossible. It's punitive.
It's designed to trap you.
Exactly. And that's where we get this really strong language.
Hmm.
The U.S. Department of Labor itself has described these contracts as being a system akin to modern-day indentured servitude.
That's not activist language. That's the government. That's a federal agency calling it out.
It's legally sanctioned language. It highlights how much these contracts restrict a worker's freedom to move, which is supposed to be a fundamental part of a free market.
And yet, despite all this documented harm, the sources are pointing to a really worrying trend, a regulatory retreat. It seems like the federal agencies that are supposed to protect workers are pulling back.
This is a critical piece of the puzzle. We're seeing congressional inquiries from late 2025 that highlight a whole series of recent actions by these agencies that signal they're deprioritizing enforcement against TRAPs. The ground is shifting under workers' feet.
Okay, so who are we talking about? Let's start with the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the consumer watchdog.
Right. They had already found that traps pose substantial risks to consumers. And their most powerful weapon against this kind of thing is something called UDAP.
UDAP.
Unfair, deceptive, or abusive acts or practices. It's their legal bazooka. They can use it to go after financial schemes that are fundamentally unfair, even if they don't break a specific technical law.
So they could use that against these front-loaded traps.
They could. But the concern raised in Congress is that the CFPB seems to be limiting its own ability to use UDAP for employer-driven debt. They're basically taking their best tool off the table.
Yeah.
And get this, they were completely absent from a big settlement against a major healthcare system, HTA, that was using what were called abusive traps on its nurses.
Wait, a hospital system was abusing nurses with this debt, and the main consumer protection agency just sat it out?
Sat it out. It creates a vacuum. And then you have the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. Their whole job is to keep markets fair. They had proposed this huge, game-changing rule to ban non-competes.
And that rule was important for TRAPs, wasn't it?
Vitally important. It included protections that would have banned TRAPs with penalties that weren't reasonably related to the actual cost of training. It would have killed the most abusive ones overnight.
But they dropped it.
They dropped it. After a court challenge, the FTC just formally withdrew from defending the rule in late 2025. Instead, they're going back to this much weaker case-by-case approach. For the average worker, that means a huge proactive shield was just taken away. The burden is back on you, the individual, to sue your employer.
And there were other agencies too, right?
Yeah, the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, they rescinded a key guidance memo that had explained why most of these stay-or-pay contracts are unlawful because they stop workers from organizing or seeking better jobs.
So they took away the warning sign for employers.
They did. And finally, the Department of Labor settled a big TRAPs case against an IT company called SmoothStack. But the terms of the settlement were kept secret.
Why does that matter?
Because it creates ambiguity. No one knows what the precedent is. Lawyers who want to help workers don't know how the DOL is calculating these training costs or what to expect. It keeps everyone in the dark.
So you have a growing problem, 1 in 12 workers, but at the same time, you have this coordinated regulatory retreat. All the watchdogs are looking the other way.
It's a huge de-risking for companies using these contracts. It signals that this kind of employer-driven debt is here to stay, and it's going to get harder for workers to escape.
And this is happening in the UK too, right? They're looking into similar gray areas.
Yeah, the UK government launched this call for evidence, looking at things like unpaid work trials and work shadowing. It's the same basic idea, companies trying to blur the lines to get labor without having to pay the minimum wage.
So let's connect all these threads. This is where we see the full picture of the high cost of social mobility. You have the barrier to get in, the unpaid internship, and the barrier to get out, the TRAP.
It's this vicious cycle. If your family has money, you can afford the unpaid internship, which gets you the experience you need. The data showed students who do an internship get 16% more job offers. Access is everything.
But your reward for getting that access could be a $15,000 debt trap in your next job, locking you into a place you hate.
And if you can't afford the internship in the first place, which we saw disproportionately affects working-class graduates, you're just shut out from the start. Your talent doesn't even matter.
The whole idea of a meritocracy just completely crumbles here. The system isn't built on skill, it's built on social capital, on who you know.
The numbers on that are just stunning. We think of the job market as this formal thing with applications and interviews, but only 11% of internships were found through open ads. 11%.
So where are the rest coming from?
Networks. 20% of internships were found through a family member or a friend who knew someone at the company. The who you know factor is actually getting stronger, not weaker.
It's like a video game where you have to pay to see the map. If your parents are already at a high level, they just hand you the key.
And if you're starting at zero, with no professional connections, the data is brutal. Graduates from working-class backgrounds with no connections had only a 13% participation rate in internships.
14% compared to what for the connected middle-class grads?
61%.
Wow, that's a 48-point gap. That's not about talent. That's not about drive. That's purely about access and money. The system isn't rewarding aptitude. It's rewarding privilege.
Which brings us to this strong ethical call to action. The sources view these practices as actively perpetuating inequality. The solution isn't just about tweaking the rules to avoid a lawsuit. It's about prioritizing paid internships, period.
Because that opens up the talent pool. It actually helps the company in the long run by bringing in diverse perspectives. It strengthens the whole economy.
The goal should be about matching talent to opportunity, not just, matching people who know the right people to opportunity. The price of access shouldn't be the deciding factor.
And paying people fairly, whether it's an intern at the start of their career or a worker who wants to leave, it's not just ethical, it's strategic. It builds loyalty, improves retention, and protects your reputation. It's about seeing workers as an investment, not a liability you have to manage with debt.
So we've taken this deep dive into the two sides of this pay-to-work trend. The hidden cost of entry, with unpaid internships filtered by the bank of mom and dad.
And the growing prohibitive debt penalty for leaving enforced by these TRAPs.
We've seen a system that is rigged from the start to favor those with money and connections, while at the same time creating these complex debt traps to suppress wages and mobility for everyone else.
And we've seen how the regulators who are supposed to be protecting workers seem to be stepping back, creating this vacuum that lets these coercive practices flourish.
Which leads us with a final provocative thought for you to take away. If the whole point of a healthy job market is to achieve the better matching of talent to opportunities to make sure the best people get the best jobs, and yet the very systems we use, from internships that shut out the poor to contracts that trap people in debt, are actively filtering out talent based on financial privilege. Is this system really looking for the buck's talent?
Or is it just optimizing for the people who can afford to pay the high price of entry and the even steeper cost of exit?
That's the crucial question that is shaping our economy today. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.